my first attempt at recording an album.
I plugged the mic in, flipped a couple switches and started rhyming. It wasn't right then, but I kept writing, knowing I had to put the time in to earn my stipend. Do your guy a solid one time, subscribe and like this.
So, my first album was like 5 years in the making. You know what I'm saying? Like, it took that long, but from me deciding that I'm putting together an album to holding a disc in my hand with my songs recorded, mixed, and mastered. Like, this is my album. Here, put this in your CD player. You know what I'm saying? 5 years. And a few years before that, just getting ready to be that type of MC, to be an actual recording artist, as opposed to just a dude from around the way that could kick a dope verse on command. You feel me? Because this, contrary to popular belief, there's a big difference. Like, I know a lot of dudes that if you was like, rhyme for me right now, they'd say something out their mouth that'll have you weak in the legs. Like, oof, damn, he nice. You know what I'm saying? But if you put him in the studio, what comes out, not gonna be pleasant sounding at all. And vice versa. I know a lot of dudes that you put them on the spot, like kick something, they would not be able to impress even the most forgiving of hip hop fans. But if they play a song for you that they did, you'd be like, damn, who's this? You know what I'm saying? Like, sound great. Like, it's a whole different skill set. You know what I'm saying? Like, I started rhyming for real in high school, and you know, there wasn't no microphones around, no studio equipment around. I mean, my father had introduced me to that side of the music business, but as it pertained to hip hop, MCing, you know what I'm saying? Talking on these beats real slick, I didn't know nothing about that. It was lunch tables, about to tear your head off. You know what I'm saying? And so I got good at that. I got good at being that dude that if you bumped into me somewhere in the hallway and was like, yo, let me hear some rhymes, I'll put you on your ass with the first 3 bars and then keep going for another 13, or shit, me back then for another 45. You know what I'm saying? And keep knocking you down. You know what I'm saying? Face to face, out my mouth. I'm going to impress you. I was that dude. Man, when I first started getting into the studio, I could count at least 2 major blunders to where I went in the studio as that dope MC. Sometimes me and my dope MC partner, we had a little squad, a little duo at the time that was crazy. Performance-wise, we'd get on stage and wow whoever. I could think at least 2 major blunders where either I myself or me and my partner get in the studio and what came out on tape, trash. Even though we was the dopest MCs, shit, ever. You know what I'm saying? Didn't know how to record. Hadn't honed that skill set. You know what I'm saying? And then right around the early 2000s, maybe 01-ish, you know what I'm saying? It started to become like a thing. Like, yeah, we didn't impress every hip hop head in the city spitting for him face to face, but what do we have to show for it? I don't have no, you know what I'm saying? It became a desire right around, I want to say the end of 2000. I might have been 17 or close to it at the time, to have a tangible product. You know what I'm saying? basement ciphers, house parties was one thing. You know what I'm saying? I was already known as one of the best MCs in the city. By the time I even decided that I wanted to drop a tape, you feel me? Like, and so those first couple of sessions was just like, they produced trash. And then slowly but surely I started to get used to how my voice sounds from that third person perspective, like hearing it played back and how I want it to sound. You know what I'm saying? On a song versus spit this verse, you know what I'm saying? Like, I want when you play the record, I want to come off like this. And that's a lot of things. It's a lot of dope MCs out there that never even thought along those lines. Like, yeah, I'm a dope MC. I can spit a verse for you right now that's going to blow your wig back. But do I even know how I want a song of mine to sound? What's my vibe? You know what I'm saying? And so that took a little, probably at least 3-4 studio sessions, costly studio sessions, because we're not talking about a time where you could just spend a couple thousand, you know what I'm saying, get a computer and an interface and a cheap microphone and make it happen. Like, no, you pretty much had to go to a professional studio. I knew a few people with home studios, but these was older dudes who either accumulated this gear over a long period of time or they had money, you know what I'm saying, to where they was able to buy this. And so essentially, even those were professional studios. They just happened to be in people's homes. You wasn't finna just get homie hookup, come and just drop. At least not that often. You know what I'm saying? And so the first time where I really shelled out some cash, like at least far as I was concerned at the time, some dough, was when I paid up front. Well, half up front. I agreed up front to a whole album. We're going to record a whole album. At the time, I think I agreed to do the album at, I think it was maybe $35 an hour, something like that. I can't remember how many hours we worked out it was going to take to do these songs I had. But that's kind of what the agreement was. And so I paid this it was these duos. These two ladies who were relatively well known in the area for like gospel rap that they did. You know what I'm saying? I think one was the DJ and one was the MC or something like that. Had kind of and they did gospel rap. I'm not going to tell you their names, but that was the thing. And it came to my attention that they had built this really, really, at least far as I could tell, state-of-the-art studio in this new home that they had purchased. Like it had one of those, what they call it, a daylight basement, to where the backside of the house, you could walk out directly from the basement, you know what I'm saying? And they had a big mixing board of some type in there, and sectioned off where, the vocal booth, big windows where you're looking directly at the engineer from in the vocal booth. Like it looked to my eyes, to my untrained eyes, to be like the state-of-the-art studio. And they was like, yeah, we'll do the album, X amount of dollars an hour, X amount of hours it should take to get this album recorded, and you'll be hooked up. That'll be your first album. I had all the songs written, or so I thought at the time. Later, some other changes were made, but at this time I had all the songs written and I had all the beats produced myself. Now, here was the catch. All of the beats I had made with a PlayStation game. I'll put a picture of it like here, so y'all, you know what I'm saying? But it was this PlayStation game called something like MTV Music Generator, something like that. Homeboy had talked to me, had showed it to me, and I had it hooked up in my living room with like some car speakers, like a couple of horn tweeters, a couple of 8-inch woofers, and I had made all the beats like that on this PlayStation. And when I would take my PlayStation around to different people's houses to let them hear my beats, like, and I had used the little volume controls and little frequency cutoffs that you had available within that essentially early DAW, and kind of had did my mix and my arrangement all in this PlayStation game. And on my system at home with these makeshift speaker setup, car speaker setup, plugged into like a home audio receiver, and everybody's TV wherever I went, even people who had them TVs that had, surround setups, I plug my PlayStation in and my beats would sound good. You know what I'm saying? And so I thought, I didn't really know anything about mixing. I just knew that sounds like it's too loud. That sounds like it needs, you know what I'm saying? Like, until it sound good. And so I bring my PlayStation into this studio, and I remember they asked me, do you want us to dump these tracks into the system individually, the audio tracks, or just the whole thing on a stereo track? And at the time, I didn't know the difference for real, as far as like what it was gonna, the capabilities of how we could make this sound. And so I just went for what was gonna be fastest. And so we took my PlayStation and plugged it with RCA cables to whatever they was tracking to, and dumped all of my beats in as a whole, 2 tracks. And in the studio, I couldn't hear anything wrong. It sounded good to me. And so I recorded my vocals over them. And I had paid them half of the total we agreed on up front, had signed a little contract, and I had recorded all of the vocals in a lot less hours than what we initially projected. And that was because I was never the type of MC to just write a song and then figure out how it's gonna go once I get to the studio. Like, all of these songs were rehearsed. Many of them I had performed before, like on stage. Like, I had my vocals to these songs down. I knew how I wanted to spit them. Everything was ready as far as that, because I had spit these verses to thousands of people. You know what I'm saying? Over the past year or two, just, you know what I'm saying, going around letting people hear how nice I am. So I knew how I wanted everything to go. And so we knocked out the vocals relatively quick. And then we sat down and started trying to mix. And I used up almost as much time going back every week trying to get a good mix as I did recording all these vocals. I was going to them once a week. During the day, it was like something like 2 or 3 hours, and we'd go in. I dropped like 3 or 4 songs. That's why I got them done so quick, because I think it was like 11, 12 songs at the time. And I probably knocked out all of them in 3 sessions. You know what I'm saying? And then I had 4 or 5 maybe subsequent sessions going in and trying to get a good mix out of each one. And what would happen was I would sit with them. They would make their suggestions according to what they knew. I assumed they knew a lot more than I did. And so I would listen to them, and we would tweak things best we could. You know what I'm saying? But really it wasn't mixing, because mind you, we were working with a 2-track beat and my vocals. At the most 4 or 5 vocal tracks between the main vocal, hook main, and then overdubs and ad-libs. You know what I'm saying? So main verse, overdub, ad-lib, main hook, overdub, ad-lib. So maybe 6 tracks of audio plus the 2 of the beat. So they weren't really mixing so much as they were just doing tilt EQ moves, that kind of thing. And I would get it thinking it sounds good in the studio, and I'd take it and play it in a couple of cars. Because mind you, I wasn't hearing my stuff in cars because it was on the PlayStation, right? And I ain't had no baller ass friends with PlayStations in their cars at the time. You know what I'm saying? And so this is my first time hearing any of my music in cars specifically. And I'd go and put it in my girlfriend's car because at the time she had a better stereo system than me. And it would sound bad. You know what I'm saying? Until finally I just kept going back until finally we got a balance, so to speak, that sounded decent in my girlfriend's car. So me, super duper excited. I know where the top DJ in the city spins on, I can't remember if it was Friday nights or Saturday, it might have been Sunday nights. I remember it's probably like an odd night. I think this DJ spun at this one new club, and the club was supposed to be a popping new hip spot or whatever, and he spun there on Sundays. And so I popped up, and obviously, like I said, I've been spitting these verses around, making myself known as the best MC for a while. And so I know the DJs, the radio DJs, the club DJs. This dude happened to be one of the top radio DJs, and he did, you know what I'm saying? So I pop up on him like, yo, what up? I need you to play this in the club. He was like, come out to the car, let's listen to it. And he brings me out to his, I think he had a Suburban with something thunderous in the back. And he pops my CD in. Mind you, I done spent a bunch of sessions trying to get this mixed, and I'm thinking it's right, and the subwoofers do nothing. Nothing at all. It's like he like, dude, go get this mixed. And I'm just so embarrassed because he knew who I was. Everybody knew I was dead serious, you know what I'm saying? But I just felt like, oh my God. And I didn't know what to do because I didn't know why it sounded like that. You know what I'm saying? What went wrong? I had no idea. But I did have a homeboy who had a studio, and the only reason I hadn't gone to him in the first place was he was a little bit, them two ladies offered me price-wise a lower cost overall. And they told me, and it made me feel like I was gonna get in and out quicker. You know what I'm saying? I had recorded a song before with my homeboy, and he had spent hours editing. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't know what I was looking at. And so I was like, well, they get me in and out. You know what I'm saying? So I went to my homeboy like, yo, I think they played me. Like, what? Why it sound like this? And he was like, right away, you didn't multi-track the beats off the PlayStation, did you? Dumped them in as 2 tracks. I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah, no, you can't do that. I was like, oh. So I'm mad. I'm feeling like they played me. You know what I'm saying? So I go back. I'm like, it's a clause in the contract that if I don't like the final product, I get some of my money back and yada, yada, yada. And so I end up getting my money back. But here's the thing. It's only half of your money back. And I had yet to pay for the last session because it was pending me going out, seeing if it sound right. And so the amount I got back was like a small portion of what I had spent. And so I got super sour taste in my mouth. Super sour. And I was out that money, like all told, probably like $800 or something like that, which at 17, 18 years old, you know what I'm saying? For me, this wasn't nothing to sneeze at. I was broke after that. I didn't know what to do. You know what I'm saying? And so the album didn't end up getting recorded for another 4 years. Because what had happened was I did end up doing one song off the album with my homeboy, and it came out sounding beautiful. And I let him do his thing. Like I said, he would sit there and meticulously edit the waves, you know what I'm saying? Take all my breaths out, which I didn't like that part, but you know what I'm saying? The end product, when he did a song for me, even though I go in there and be rapping for 10 minutes and it'd be 2.5 hours of editing, you know what I'm saying? That I didn't know why, you know what I'm saying? But the finished product would sound great everywhere. You know what I'm saying? And so over the next few years, I had that song on deck. I had gone to this other studio, which even more money, you know what I'm saying, and done 2 more songs with my homeboy that ended up going on to the album. And they were on some super duper. I mean, they had a C800G in there. My first time coming in contact with a $10,000 microphone, you know what I'm saying? But I was so upset after the situation with me thinking I had my album done, recorded, and it not being, and me being out all this money, nothing to show for it, and me realizing that they asked me which way I wanted to do it, and I chose the quicker way, thinking it was going, you know what I'm saying? Realizing it was my ignorance that caused this to be a huge blunder. I had kind of went back to the drawing board almost entirely. My homeboy, the one who actually told me what was wrong, he had this ASR 10 keyboard that he wasn't using. And so he told me he'd give it to me for $600. And so I just started making payments to him until I had it paid off. You know what I'm saying? I had put a Boss BR1180 multi-track recorder on layaway at a pawn shop. That was another $750. Just made payments till I pay it off. So I wasn't, I didn't get discouraged and curl up into a ball. I got discouraged, knocked off my square, and kind of started looking at it from a different perspective. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, I gotta have better sounds. I gotta have me in my mind thinking if these sounds are better to begin with, if I'm using better equipment to begin with, then I don't have to worry about this multi-track issue. You know what I'm saying? And then just over those next couple of years of learning this actual professional equipment, getting away from the PlayStation, and really kind of understanding sound and everything, ended up, I got a place, set up a little home studio, and started just doing the rest of the album. And so, this is 4 or 5 years, almost 5 years after the first recording debacle of the album. I had the one song that I recorded with my guy. Somewhere along the way, I did 2 songs at this really just high-end professional studio. And those 3 songs, obviously, still when I go back and listen to that album to this day, those 3 songs do sound the best. And everything else, I re-recorded myself at home on this 8-track recorder, 8 plus a master, so 10-track recorder. And so between the time I recorded the album the first time and actually got a finished product, I ended up with 13 songs, and all but one of them I had reproduced, remade a totally different beat on the ASR 10. Yeah, all but one I had reproduced, and I put the album out. You know what I'm saying? Now, the songs that I recorded myself, in hindsight, they don't sound as good, mix-wise. There's a little muddiness in the mid-range. I didn't get the kind of separation that I probably could have. I didn't pan things as effectively as I certainly would have if I had known then what I know now. But the album did get done. 5 years later. And thinking back, had it been recorded properly that first time around, it wouldn't have been as good of an album. Because what I did do over those following years was become a much better producer and become a much better song maker. Like I actually learned and progressed from a dude that could spit a hot 16 or a hot 48, right, on the street and impress you, to a dude who knows how to build that into an actual song. And a lot of those beats that I ended up making on that ASR 10 are a lot better than the stuff that I had made on the PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? And what I learned over those years, just really just actually becoming a recording artist. The album that ended up getting released those years later, far, far, far more impressive than the album I initially recorded that first time around. You know what I'm saying?